Most people think about food only in physical terms: calories, nutrients, proteins, vitamins, and minerals. And of course, these things matter. Food quite literally becomes part of our bodies. It turns into our cells, our hormones, and the energy that moves us through the day. But many cultures around the world have always believed that food carries something more. Not just ingredients, energy, the emotional state of the person who prepared it, the atmosphere of the place where it was cooked, the intention behind the hands that made it. Think about it for a moment. Have you ever eaten a meal that looked perfect, but somehow felt heavy or uncomfortable afterwards? And other times, even a very simple meal can feel warm, grounding, and strangely comforting. Why does that happen? In this video, we'll explore a question that has existed in spiritual traditions, family kitchens, and ancient cultures for centuries. Can the person who cooks your food change your energy? And if so, what does that mean for the way we prepare and share meals every day? When we think about food, most of us think about nutrition. We think about protein, carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, and calories. Modern health advice is built around these measurements. We analyze food based on what it contains and how it affects the body physically. And this perspective is not wrong. Food is, quite literally, the building material of the human body. Everything inside you is constantly being renewed and rebuilt using what you eat. The cells in your body today are not the same cells you had years ago. Your body continuously replaces them. The skin you touch, the muscles you move, even parts of your organs are slowly regenerated using nutrients from your meals. In that sense, food becomes you. But if food becomes part of your body so directly, it raises an interesting question. What exactly are we consuming when we eat? Because food is never just a collection of nutrients. It is also the result of a process that includes human hands, human emotions, and a surrounding environment. Think about how a meal comes into existence. Someone selects the ingredients, someone prepares them, someone cuts, mixes, cooks, and seasons them. Throughout that entire process, a person is present, and people are not neutral machines. Every person carries emotions, thoughts, stress, calmness, attention, or distraction. These states influence how we move, how we focus, and how we interact with the things around us. Even without thinking about spirituality at all, we already know this from daily life. When someone is rushed and distracted, mistakes happen more easily. When someone is calm and focused, the outcome of what they are doing often improves. The same applies to cooking. A person preparing a meal is constantly interacting with the food, touching it, cutting it, stirring it, seasoning it, adjusting heat, timing, and balance. The entire process is shaped by the state of the person doing it. This idea is not new. In many traditional cultures, cooking was considered almost a sacred act. Meals were not prepared carelessly. People approached food preparation with patience, presence, and sometimes even rituals of gratitude. In some households, cooks were taught to remain calm while preparing food. In others, people would say a blessing before cooking or before eating. These traditions were not simply religious habits. They reflected a deeper belief that food carries something beyond its ingredients, that the process through which it is prepared matters. Today, in fast-paced modern environments, this perspective is often forgotten. Meals are rushed. Kitchens can be loud and stressful places. Food is sometimes treated as a product rather than something carefully created. But many people still notice something interesting. Two meals made with the exact same ingredients can feel completely different. One feels nourishing and satisfying. The other feels heavy, uncomfortable, or strangely draining. Why does that happen? To understand that better, we need to look more closely at the person behind the meal, because the cook is never separate from the food they prepare, and that is where the idea of energy begins to enter the conversation. If food is created through a process, then the state of the person preparing it becomes part of that process. Every cook brings something invisible into the kitchen: their mood, their focus, their level of stress or calmness. These things may seem unrelated to food at first, but if you think about it, cooking is an extremely hands-on activity. It requires attention, timing, sensitivity, and care. A cook is constantly interacting with the food. They are touching ingredients, adjusting heat, tasting, seasoning, and making decisions every few seconds. The quality of these decisions often reflects the state of the person making them. When someone cooks while calm and focused, the process tends to become slower and more attentive. Ingredients are handled with care. Timing is more precise. The person is present with what they are doing. But when someone cooks while stressed, angry, or rushing, the entire atmosphere changes. Movements become faster and less careful. Attention shifts away from the food. The kitchen becomes tense rather than calm. The process becomes mechanical instead of mindful. Even professional chefs often talk about this without using spiritual language. In culinary training, cooks are taught that cooking requires presence. They must taste carefully, adjust slowly, and remain aware of everything happening in the kitchen. If they lose focus, the quality of the meal changes. But beyond technique, there is also the emotional atmosphere. Imagine two very different scenarios. In the first kitchen, someone is cooking slowly at home. The space is quiet. They are focused on what they are doing. Maybe they are preparing food for family or friends. Their attention is on the meal, and there is a sense of care in the process. In the second kitchen, the environment is loud and chaotic. The cook is stressed, rushing, frustrated, or distracted. They are simply trying to finish the task as quickly as possible. Both kitchens might produce the same dish, using the same ingredients, but the experience of the meal may not feel the same. Many people notice this intuitively. Meals made by someone who truly cares often feel more comforting. Even if the recipe is simple, something about the food feels nourishing beyond just taste. Meanwhile, food prepared in a rushed or tense environment can sometimes feel strangely heavy or unsatisfying, even when it looks perfect. This is why many cultures historically emphasize the state of mind while cooking. Some traditions encourage cooks to remain calm or grateful while preparing meals. Others recommended avoiding arguments or negative emotions in the kitchen. In certain places, people even believed that the emotional atmosphere could influence the entire meal. Whether someone sees this idea as spiritual, psychological, or simply cultural, the underlying message is the same. Cooking is not only a technical process, it is also a human process, and humans always bring their inner state into what they create. This leads to another interesting observation. Sometimes two meals prepared with identical ingredients can feel completely different when you eat them, which brings us to the next question. Why do people often feel such different reactions to food that looks almost exactly the same? Have you ever noticed that two meals can look almost identical, but feel completely different after you eat them? Sometimes you finish a meal and feel light, satisfied, and calm. Even if the food was very simple, something about it feels nourishing. Other times, a meal might look perfect. Beautiful presentation, high-quality ingredients, everything seems right. But afterwards, the experience feels strangely different. The food may feel heavy, uncomfortable, or simply less satisfying. Many people experience this, but rarely stop to ask why. One explanation is purely physical. The ingredients may be different. The oils, spices, or cooking methods can affect digestion and how the body responds. But there are also moments when the ingredients are almost identical. Two people cook the same recipe using the same vegetables, the same spices, and the same cooking technique. Yet the experience of eating the meal can still feel noticeably different. Part of this difference comes from something very simple: attention. When someone cooks with full attention, the process changes. The person tastes carefully, adjusts the seasoning slowly, watches the heat, and responds to what the food needs at each moment. Cooking becomes a form of presence. But when someone cooks while distracted or rushing, the process becomes automatic. The cook may be thinking about something else, stressed, or simply trying to finish quickly. Small details are missed. Timing may be slightly off. The ingredients are the same, but the experience changes. Another factor is the emotional atmosphere surrounding the meal. Human beings are extremely sensitive to environments, even when we are not consciously aware of it. You can walk into a room and immediately sense whether it feels calm, tense, welcoming, or uncomfortable. Our bodies constantly pick up signals from the spaces around us. Food is created inside these same environments. If the kitchen is peaceful, focused, and relaxed, the process of cooking reflects that atmosphere. But if the environment is rushed, loud, or stressful, that tension can influence the entire experience of preparing the meal. Many people notice this instinctively. Meals made slowly with care and attention often feel more comforting. Even very simple dishes can feel deeply satisfying when they are prepared in a calm environment. Meanwhile, food prepared while rushing, arguing, or under stress can sometimes feel heavier, even if the recipe is exactly the same. This is one reason why homemade meals often feel so special. It is not only about the ingredients, it is also about the attention, care, and atmosphere that surrounded the meal while it was being created. And once we start noticing this, we begin to understand that food is never just food. It is the result of a process that includes people, environments, and intentions. And that process may explain why the same meal can feel completely different depending on who prepared it and how it was made. Intention is simply the mindset or inner purpose someone carries while doing something. It is the difference between doing a task automatically and doing it with awareness and care. Cooking can happen in both ways. Sometimes we cook because we have to. It becomes another task in a busy day. The goal is simply to finish quickly and move on to the next responsibility. But other times, cooking becomes something very different. It becomes an act of care. Think about the difference between preparing food only for yourself when you are rushing compared to preparing food for someone you love. The ingredients may be the same, but the process often changes. You might take more time. You might pay closer attention to the details. You might think about what the other person enjoys eating. The meal becomes more than just nourishment. It becomes a form of giving. Throughout history, many cultures treated cooking exactly this way. Preparing food for family, friends, or guests was not only a practical activity, it was also a way of expressing generosity, hospitality, and care. The act of cooking carried intention behind it. Some traditions even encouraged cooks to pause for a moment before preparing a meal, a brief moment of gratitude for the ingredients, a quiet intention that the meal would nourish the people who would eat it. Whether someone sees this as spiritual or simply mindful, the effect can be powerful. When intention is present, the cook becomes more attentive. The process becomes slower and more thoughtful. The person preparing the meal is fully engaged with what they are doing. That attention often changes the entire experience of cooking. The ingredients are handled with more care. The food is tasted and adjusted thoughtfully. Small details that might normally be ignored become important. The meal begins to feel more personal, and people often notice this when they eat. A meal prepared with genuine care tends to feel comforting and satisfying in a way that goes beyond flavor alone. Even simple dishes can feel deeply nourishing when they are created with patience and attention. This is why so many family recipes feel special. It is not always about complicated techniques or expensive ingredients. It is about the care that went into preparing the meal, sometimes repeated through generations. Intentions, even quiet ones, can shape the way food is created. And across the world, many cultures developed traditions that reflected this understanding. Before eating, people would pause. They would give thanks. They would bless the meal, which raises another interesting question. Why have so many cultures throughout history felt the need to bless their food before eating it? Across the world and across many different religions and cultures, there is one practice that appears again and again. Before eating, people pause. Sometimes they close their eyes, sometimes they say a prayer, sometimes they simply express gratitude. But the idea is always similar. They bless the food. You can see this in Christian households, where families say grace before meals. In Buddhist traditions, where monks reflect silently before eating. In many Hindu traditions, where food is first offered to the divine. And in countless family traditions, where people simply take a moment to give thanks. At first glance, this might seem purely religious. But if we look a little deeper, these practices may also reflect something very practical about human experience. Blessing food slows the moment down. Instead of eating automatically or rushing through a meal, people pause. They become aware of the food in front of them. They acknowledge where it came from and the effort that went into preparing it. In that brief moment, the entire atmosphere around the meal changes. The mind becomes calmer, the body relaxes, attention returns to the present moment. This simple pause can shift the experience of eating completely. Modern research in psychology has shown that gratitude itself can have measurable effects on the body. When people take a moment to feel thankful, stress levels decrease and the nervous system moves into a more relaxed state. And digestion works best when the body is relaxed. So even from a purely physical perspective, taking a moment of gratitude before eating can influence how the body receives the food. But traditional cultures often saw something deeper in this practice. They believed that food carried not only physical nourishment, but also the energy of the process through which it was created. Blessing the food was a way of bringing calm, gratitude, and positive intention into that moment before eating. In some traditions, people even believed that gratitude could transform the energy of the meal itself, that by approaching food with respect and appreciation, the meal would nourish both the body and the spirit. Whether someone interprets that idea spiritually or simply psychologically, the effect can still be meaningful. Because the moment we pause and become aware of what we are eating, the relationship with food changes. The meal is no longer just fuel, it becomes something we receive with attention and respect. And that brings us to the final question. If the state of the cook, the atmosphere of the kitchen, and the intention behind the meal all play a role, what does this actually mean for our everyday lives? How should we think about the food we prepare and the food we choose to eat? So what do all of these ideas actually mean for our everyday lives? Does it mean we should start worrying about every meal we eat? Probably not. Food should not become another source of stress or overthinking. Eating is one of the most natural and human activities we have. It is meant to nourish us and bring people together. But becoming a little more aware of the process behind food can change the way we approach it. When you prepare food yourself, it can be helpful to slow down just slightly. Cooking does not have to be rushed or mechanical. Even simple meals can be prepared with a sense of calm attention. You do not need special rituals or complicated practices. Sometimes it is as simple as being present while you cook, paying attention to the ingredients, taking a moment of gratitude for the food in front of you and the people who will share it. These small shifts in awareness can change the entire experience of preparing a meal. And when it comes to the food prepared by others, awareness can also be helpful. Many people naturally feel more comfortable eating food prepared by people they trust, family members, friends, or someone who clearly cares about what they're doing in the kitchen. This may not only be about taste, it may also be about the atmosphere and intention behind the meal. Food prepared with patience, attention, and care often feels different from food prepared in a rushed or tense environment. Even if the ingredients are the same, the experience of eating can change. This idea does not require believing in anything mystical. It simply reminds us that food is deeply connected to human interaction. Meals are created by people. They pass through human hands, human emotions, and human attention before reaching the table. And perhaps that is why some meals stay in our memory for years. Not because they were complicated or expensive, but because they were prepared with care, shared in a peaceful atmosphere, and eaten with people who mattered to us. In the end, food nourishes more than just the body. It also reflects the energy, attention, and intention that surrounded its creation. And sometimes, the simplest meals prepared with genuine care can be the most nourishing of all.